Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, March 26th meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Our first order of business is an executive session. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A and 3, to deliberate upon matters which, if done in an open meeting, may have detrimental effect on the position of the town regarding strategy with respect to litigation, to come out of executive session and reconvene in open session.
And this is a roll call vote. Mr. LaLiberty?
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Is there a second? Mr. LaLiberty?
Aye.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Holstrom?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body relative to litigation, and that the board will reconvene in open session following executive session. I'd like to call the Monday, March 26th meeting of the Board of Selectmen back in order. First, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone else recording the meeting. Representative from the Telegram is making an audio recording. Seeing no one else, could we please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is public comment, and we have Mr. Wayne Page, who's signed up for KAW, which I believe is keeping Auburn warm.
Yes,
Thank you.
keeping Auburn warm. We do the fuel assistance every year. There's some residents that go out and get donations to help out the needy that need oil. And we're just giving the kind of a end of the year to let people know, as of April 1st, we will be stopping the applications, but you still have a few days left to proceed with applications. And if you do so, you can get them up at the senior center, or you can give me a call at 508-832-3581, and I'll help you with the applications. And we've had a few this year, and we're very pleased to have residents and businesses in the town had donated money to the Keep Auburn Warm account, so that we are a little bit ahead of schedule this year, so it may make it easier for next year when we return to start this program again. And I want to thank all the committee members for their help, and glad to be able to help the residents of Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page. So the next item is presentations and public hearings. Senator Moore is delayed, so we will move on to Scanlon Associates, the presentation of the auditor's report. Mr. Kazanovich.
Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce Tom. In the accounting world, there are two things that are certain every spring. One is the filing of taxes on April 15th, and the appearance of Tom Scanlon before you to present the town's financial statements. So I think Tom can share some good news tonight with respect to the audit. This is an audit that commenced shortly after Christmas, and we just received the financial statements the middle of last week that allowed us to put it on for this agenda. So this is for period ending June 30th of 17. I can tell you the results of the audits show once again that we continue to improve upon our reserves. Our unassigned balance is very strong. It's at about 23% of net general fund operating revenues, well above our benchmark that is set in the financial policies, and allowed us to amend our free cash policy as a result of that continued growth. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and he can highlight some of the elements and the strong points of the audit that has been provided to you tonight in a bound copy, and the general purpose financial statements in loose copy were provided in your packet for your review in advance of tonight's meeting. So with that, Tommy?
Welcome.
Thank you. I always bring a nice day with me to every time I come here. It's a nice spring day. Not too sure what else to say, but Eddie just said. I always enjoy coming to Auburn. It's always one of our top clients. You good reserves, your policies. It's a great work environment. Towns are very responsive to us, to our requests, and your financial accountability, the way you keep your ledger, is top notch. So the town should be commended on that. Again, I bring good news with the audit. You did receive an unmodified opinion, which that's what the bond companies will look at when they look at your opinion, which helps you in the bond market, helps you when you apply for grants. Can't say enough about that. We had no disagreements with management during the audit. We gave no significant adjustments to your GL, which is always a good sign for us every time we come in. I just want to kind of walk through, like Eddie had mentioned before, about your numbers and how you stand out and what. I was looking at your financial policies on page 18. Man, I know I come every year and say your financial policy is so strong, and I don't get to say that much. I don't get to say that too much during the year because not a lot of communities are in your position. But again, it's your foundation, your policies and procedures you set years ago and you stuck to them, and they really stand out in your financials. And you can see on page 18, what it talked about is you see in your general fund, that's your general fund operating statement. That's where your budget that you adopt every year stays. You can see under unassigned, that 14.5 million. That should be your free cash and your stabilization funds, which your free cash was certified about 10.7 million. It was up from 1.3 million. I don't think you used 1 cent of it to anything in 2017, which is unheard of. But again, that's the way your policies and the way you use your free cash is outstanding. Your stabilization fund's about 2.6. And the difference there, which is slightly over $1 million, is the overlay balance in the state of Massachusetts. They take that away from your free cash amount. So you can see 14.5 million. The general rule of thumb is 10%. It's very strong. When you start approaching 15%, that's even, you're in another category. You're at 22 to 24% of just your 2 main reserves. You also have a couple other reserves that sit in the non-major funds, which is your pension and your capital improvements trust, which together it's about 3 million. So when bond companies, when outsiders look at you and they look at your financial statements, it should be applauded on the back for keeping those reserves and keeping to your policies. It's one thing to have your policies, but to stick by them. I can remember years ago when the town of Auburn probably wasn't so financially healthy. So you really stuck to them and really put it. And on top of that, and looking at you, what I call off-the-book reserves is levy capacity, your ability to tax. That's your #1 asset in a community. Again, you're not taxing to your fullest, which gives you budget flexibility. And in that, you have debt overrides that are in there that you're still not taxing. Between those two, if that month is about 3.9 million. Again, communities in this era we're in don't have that kind of flexibility. The other item with levy capacity is you've been hearing about levy ceilings, communities hitting levy ceilings. That's their ability to tax stops at 2.5, kind of kicks off. Again, you don't have those issues. Again, I think it's $8 million between your levy ceiling and your levy limit. So as communities are struggling and have financial difficulties, town of Auburn's not one of them, and you can tell by your financial statements. The other statement I just want to point to is on page 22. Right, I always think is important. That's how your budget compared to what you adopted at your Maytown meetings. You can see the final budget, you adopted a budget of 59 million, balanced with the use of prior year encumbrances. You can see down below is the reconciliation. How you fared against your budget, you increased about 1.5 million, which is a combination of revenues and expenditures. So the way you're producing free cash is a nice blend. You're not getting it from one side. You're not just getting it from revenues. You're not getting it from one line item in expenditures, as you can see from the statement. And again, your fund balance, your free cash should have increased because you didn't use any, and this is how it increased. I think that's always important to know. And then the other statement I want to point to is on page 24. The town of Auburn has a self-insurance trust for the health insurance. It's very healthy, which is you have $8 million in that fund. The town owns 75%, the employees own 25%. It's another sign how healthy you are. I don't self-insurance trusts are probably not the recommended approach, like at the state level or what's out there, because they can become, it's almost a form of gambling. You're self-insured, basically. The town of Auburn, you can see how you managed it. You're managing excellent. You're at 8 million. So, I mean, that's another sign, looking at your financials. And by the last thing I want to point out on your financials is on page 27. You've adopted an OPEB trust fund, which we all, I mean, I think we know what that is. It's your health insurance you promised to your retirees. Somewhere in there, the number is real. It is a promise you made to your employees. You have $3 million in it, which is good. I would encourage taking that approach. I think right now, as you look at this fund, as you approach a certain dollar threshold, they say 10 million, is that when you start to think, how am I going to start taking it out? Are we going to start taking it out to offset our budget line items if people retire after that? So I think that's your goal for the next step on this trust. So as I talk about how financially healthy you are, here's your financial statements to back it up. So I think that's important to know. And that's kind of it on my spiel, unless you have questions, which is good.
Mr. Holstrom.
No question, just a comment. We thank you for coming back in. Your expertise has helped out Auburn, and, just your accuracy is just, it can't be beat, and we do appreciate you coming back here and the work that you do. However, we can also thank you to our extraordinary professionals who put this together every year. They've proposed many policies to us. They've helped us with our free cash in the town, with our stabilization account. We exceed, and more than exceed, like you had mentioned, more than some of the surrounding towns. And it's because of the people we have here for us. I've been here for 6 years, and I've seen a complete turnaround and extraordinary progress. And I'm hoping just to continue doing that progress with our team in place, and it's been worked out just great. So I'd like to say thanks to our administration for their hard work, and it's been proven here tonight.
Oh, yeah, I know we appreciate it as an audit team coming in.
Is there anything else? Mr. Casanova?
Just a couple of comments, and Tommy, thank you for hitting on some of those key points. But I think, Tommy, on the OPEB trust, I think, we annually try to review our financial policies, try to tweak them, modify them to adjust to some of the changing conditions. I know on the OPEB, and Tommy just raised a good point, at some point, we need to set a benchmark so we can utilize some of that OPEB to offset some of our liabilities that we know we're going to be faced with, not only today, but in the future. So I think that's something we'll have discussions on and work on that. In terms of the self-insured trust, we do have a healthy $8 million balance and change. But there are communities out there that may not have a stop-loss policy. We try to anticipate and take some of that risk out by having a reinsurance policy that will pay for any claims right now in excess of $100,000. So we pay the first 100. If we should have some type of catastrophic health situation that our employees are going through, the reinsurance will pay for those costs in excess of 100. So we look at that every month, every quarter with our healthcare administrative providers, and that's something that we gauge and we keep an eye on throughout the year. So we know where our claims are, we know where our high claims are, and we try to also utilize some of our trust as a way to hedge off some healthcare increases by absorbing it through the trust. So we're very proud of that because we kind of built up a safety net or a backstop for years that we may experience some increases in our healthcare costs. But hopefully we hope to continue to grow that trust by paying actual claims and not paying on a premium basis. So I'd like to thank Tommy and his crew. It's not easy when they come in. They come in gangbusters, and they're out straight for 2 to 3 weeks. It's a lot of work. I'd like to thank the employees in the entire finance department, because we try to get Tommy and his crew information as quickly as possible to allow them to do their job and to allow them to submit to you a timely report every spring. So, thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, we can be a pain, I know that.
So I just want to say, I sit on a couple boards outside of this board, and, we have our annual audits, and the page that I flip to is page number 10 on the short report, and it's always nice to see that there are no material weaknesses and no
Correct.
significant deficiencies. So we are doing something right here. We
Right.
appreciate the CFO and his team, looking at these numbers, and they are certainly pay attention to the details and under the leadership of the town manager. So I know you said you've held our financial policies out through other communities
Right.
as a model. So we have adopted a new financial policy since you were here last, so I hope you're aware of it and you can share it with the other communities that you work with. But it's an honor for us to have you in here and looking at our town and then holding it up as an example to other communities. So
Yes, no, we definitely do that.
thank
No,
you so much for your hard work working with our team and acknowledging the good work that we do here. Did you want to add anything before we close?
I would like to, yes, through the chair. I just want to thank the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee for all of your support for the financial policies. As you can see, it's been critical. The first written financial policy submitted in 2012. We've continued to grow. I want to thank Ed and his team for the phenomenal work that they do every day on managing the finances of this community. But did want to make sure that we pointed out that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, by supporting those policies, it gives us the structure that we need to go forward and build the budget and stick to our conservative budgeting approaches and committed to building those reserves. I think maybe 6 years ago, our free cash was about a little under $300,000, and it's $10.8 million now. And that's been a slow, steady, consistent commitment that we have made to building our reserves. Our overall reserves are probably over 30 million when you take in all of the different accounts that we have. And to just follow up on one more thing on the excess levy, over the last 8 years, we have not taxed to the 2.5, which has saved the taxpayers over $23 million in funds that we never taxed, that we had the ability to tax. So we want to thank all of you for all your support, because it gives us the backing that we need to continue to adhere to these policies. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming in.
Oh, yeah, if you have any questions throughout the year or anything comes up, don't hesitate to call our office. We believe the audit is 365 days, not just for the 2.5 weeks we're here.
Great.
So,
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Scanlon.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
We're glad we got you in and out of here. Thank you. So now we will go back to agenda item 5A, and Senator Moore is here. We'll ask him to come up to the table and join us, and he is going to give us an update on the fiscal year 2000. Up here, please, Senator. He is going to give us an update on the state's 2019 fiscal year 2019 budget. Thank you.
Welcome, Senator Moore.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Sorry for being late. I was at Quinsigamond Community College. We were doing a class on early education and how students, talking about how to advocate to the legislature.
Excellent.
So it's nice to see you all. I guess this is the part I like the best and I hate the most, because I'm here and I have to talk about a budget that is not put together by the Senate. So we're going to be here discussing the governor's budget. I'm not advocating for or against any of these funding line items. As you know, the governor has now filed his budget. We're waiting for the House to do their budget. It should be coming out the middle of April and debated the last 2 weeks of April, and then the Senate does their budget in May. The governor released his version of the fiscal 19 budget, which is House 2, in January 2018. And in the governor's proposed budget, the unrestricted general government aid was increased by $37.2 million over fiscal year 2018 to $1.1 billion. This translates into an increase in the UGGA funding by 3.5% over fiscal year 2018. That 3.5% is the same increase in the overall tax revenue growth that the state is forecasting for next year. Under the fiscal year 19 proposed budget, unrestricted government aid to the town of Auburn would increase by $59,880 over fiscal year 18 to a total of $1,770,746. So we have for Chapter 90 funding, we have fiscal year 2019, the town of Auburn is expected to receive $609,252. Which fiscal year 18 was $609,209,000. So you're seeing a slight increase of $43. Do a lot more roads with that. The town of Auburn slated, so the Senate will be considering a $200 million bond bill as soon as the House acts upon theirs. So we have to wait for the House to act upon it before we can then act upon this funding level. So as soon as they send that over to us, we'll take action on it. Statewide, the fiscal 2019 budget proposal increases Chapter 70 aid by $118.6 million to $4.865 billion, which reflects an increase of about 2.18% over fiscal year 18. And you will see that, you will note that this is a smaller increase than UGGA was given. I think last year, unrestricted government aid actually went up 3.9%. So even that's a little less, a little more than what's given appropriated this year by the governor. The governor's budget is based off of a $20 minimum per pupil increase, which the legislature actually passed last year as a $30 per pupil. And I think the year before we did $55. Every year, I am one of several who sponsor an amendment to try to get that to $100. So we will file that again, but hopefully if we can get that back to at least 55, that would be beneficial to the cities and towns. In reaching its fiscal 2019 proposal, the administration adjusted the formula by increasing assumed costs for employee benefits and fixed charges by approximately 6%, which has resulted in $24 million in new state aid. Notably, the budget also includes $10 million in new funding for a total of $290.1 million for special education circuit breaker. There's another $1 million in new funding for student assessment for a total of $32.1 million. The town of Auburn for Chapter 70. Your final fiscal year 18 budget number for Chapter 70 was $10,078,534. The line item expected the governor has proposed for 2019 is $10,960,077, which is an increase of $881,543. The governor's fiscal year 2019 budget places Auburn public school enrollment at approximately 2,486 students, which marks an increase of 55 students over fiscal year 2018. I think you're all aware of the Foundation Budget Review Commission that was passed several years ago. Well, that was formed and then passed the study of the foundation budget. They came out with recommendations that the formula that was established back in the 90s had not been adequately funding our public schools to a tune of about being $1 billion short. So the Senate, over the last two sessions, has tried to enact the recommendations, but we've been unsuccessful in getting that through both branches. So hopefully the Senate will again act to provide the funding for that. And I just wanted to go over some specific Auburn initiatives that we've recently done in the legislature. The Senate just did a capital bonds bill, and now the bill's gone to the House. In that, I reached out to all my cities and towns and the town managers, and working with the town manager, she gave us some recommendations on projects that the town needed to try to complete. So we were able to get in the amount of $1,635,000 of bonding money identified for the town of Auburn to complete a new fire tower training facility and several other public safety projects. Now, the way a bond bill works is obviously, it goes from the legislature to the governor, and even when it's signed upon, then you have to advocate with the administration to get it out, to have them fund it. So we've been working with Representative Frost's office to try to get this included in the House version. If it doesn't, then we'll have to go to a conference committee. But, so that is contained in the Senate version, so we just need Representative Frost to get this in the House version. We've also been working with your town manager on the right of first refusal. I think as many of you know, this year, besides higher education, I'm the chair of the Committee on Municipal and Regional Government, and we just released from committee a land zoning bill. And in that bill was an initiative that your town manager has come to us on, and that had to do with land that was zoned agricultural and recreational. And you had a first right of refusal, and the town only had 120 days to act upon it, and the recommendation was to make it 180 days, so that to give the cities and towns more time to act upon the town meeting and deal with, review and assess the proposal. So the bill coming out of the committee in the House does contain the language that your town manager had put forth to us. So hopefully that will stay in the legislation. And the other thing that we're working on is with Representative Frost right now. We're finalizing a letter to submit to the Mass Historical Commission to seek reconsideration of approving historical tax credits for the proposed renovations to the Julia Bancroft Elementary School. So we're working on that also. And other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer with you, or any other issues you want to discuss.
Okay, Mr. Holster?
Sounds like we're doing very, very well, and we come back to our town manager and her administration that puts Auburn back on the map with some of the projects we have going, and also supporting and a resource for some of the other bills that are going through. So we thank you very much for that. You had mentioned that you've got a few projects going on. Is there anything that the town is going to suffer with? Are we going to lose anything local aid-wise or any assistance-wise? Or are we going to be able to maintain what we've had over the past year or two as far as money coming in from the state?
I would... well, I hate to forecast what's going to
I
go down.
I understand.
Unless there is some unexpected bad budgetary news as far as the meeting the benchmark revenues, I would anticipate that you will not see numbers lower than this. Traditionally, whether it was Governor Patrick or Governor Baker, the legislature has always, but the majority of the time, has always increased funding over what the governor has proposed. So based on past practice, I would imagine that I would think that you'd see better numbers, or at least nothing worse than this.
Great. Well, I'd like to just say thank you to you for all your hard work and support for
My pleasure.
Representing the town of Auburn and helping us with our projects here, because it just it benefits the residents, and it progresses the town and makes us a better place to be. So I thank you very much for your efforts and your support.
Thank you. Well, thank you, but if it's not for the outreach from yourselves, your town manager, and other local officials, I wouldn't know what to put forth as far as these projects that we sought funding for in the capital bonding projects bill. So thank you for reaching out to my office and communicating with us.
Mr. Berthew?
The bill that contains the amendment for the 180 days, the line items, the other line items that are on that bill, do you see them as, if this goes through, other things are going to be detrimental, or is it a bill that pretty much has a lot of positive things to it?
On the land zoning?
Yeah.
The land zoning bill actually was passed last year by the Senate. I actually voted against it last year. We released the bill from committee. This basically goes back, I want to say, over the last 40 years, and pretty much tries to update all of the zoning laws in Massachusetts, as far as whether you have a 2/3 vote or just a majority vote on certain issues. We brought this issue in on the 180 days. I don't anticipate the bill being passed from the House in the current format that's in. We met with the builders, we met with real estate, we met with town planners, and this is one of the few bills, or piece of legislation, that you had varying reviews or opinions from within the same sectors. So we had some town planners that liked it, then we had some builders or developers that thought it was good, and we had some that thought it was going to increase costs. So there's going to be a lot of input in the House and amendments filed. I do anticipate, though, whatever the House sends over, I would anticipate that the Senate would act upon this, especially seeing that one of the original sponsors of this bill was Senator Harriet Chandler, who's now the Senate President. So,
Thank you.
Anything else?
but I would strongly, if you can, work with your town planner and to look at this, to make recommendations to Representative Frost on the various language that you like to see stay in the bill or not stay in the bill. I don't know what the, and excuse me, does Auburn have, do you have by right in-law apartments?
No.
Okay, well, this would change the zoning laws to, that would be a by right. Instead of having to go for a special permit, you would have that right as a property owner. So this goes through almost every aspect of the zoning laws.
So I know there's been a lot of discussion on it, but I too want to talk about the 61A land. Many of us on this board dealt with the issue, and we can say, with firsthand knowledge, that the timeline is very tight. I mean, you try to hold a public hearing and get public input, knowing that you have to have the money to purchase the land, which has to go to town meeting, and that entire process was a very, very tight timeline. So we'd ask you to continue to advocate for the recommendations of the town manager. I know that public hearings have already happened on that. The town manager has spoken on those public hearings. But when you are, when you are a member of the select board who has to take a position on whether to exercise your first right of refusal for a 61A land, that has to become part of your decision making, that the timeline of acquiring, of getting approval for the funding. And it was very, very close here in Auburn, so.
Actually, I remember we had this issue come up when I was on the board of Selectmen in Millbury, and I know the timeline is very restrictive. To be honest with you, I tried to get through last year. There was a lot of resistance from the Division of Agriculture. So I think the Commissioner or Director from the Division of Agriculture spoke against this. We had the real estate and developers spoke against this. So this is actually one of those issues that if you do favor it, I would be reaching out to your associations, your trade associations, and advocating that they support this, to keep this in. This very well might be one of the language sections of language that you see taken out unless there's a lot more support for it.
And the town manager is going to speak next, but I believe the MMA took a position in support of this, so
Okay.
we will continue to advocate with MMA. Ms. Jacobson?
Through the chair, I also wanted to just mention the MMA, and to Mr. Berthium's question too, the land use and zoning omnibus legislation, the MMA and the committees that I serve on, we have taken positions for and against certain parts of it. Certain parts of it we think are very good, are excellent. Obviously, the section about 61A and 61B is very important. We tend to oppose any section that removes local control from municipalities, because I think that's a critical piece, that our planning boards and zoning boards should have local control. We shouldn't have the state be dictating how we zone our own properties, so we would oppose those types of things. And I just want to say that I want to thank Senator Moore and your office for all the support you've given. There isn't an issue that we've brought to their attention and asked for support or help or assistance in some sort that you haven't come through on and helped us with. And
Thank
it's
you.
been critical. And working with Representative Frost, we have a good team there, both House and Senate, and there are issues that we try to monitor, and likewise, your office keeps us informed of things that are critical for us to know about as well. And I believe your new committee assignment, while it's another thing to add to your plate, is a great thing for municipalities, because being a co-chair of that committee is really critical for cities and towns to be able to have a voice in municipal issues, and again, to try to keep that local control. And there's a lot of bills, like you said, there's a lot of things out there that it's so hard to keep track of everything going on, but you and your staff have been great. We thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I should also should mention, as far as on this zoning bill, we did have language. Everyone's familiar with the Dover Amendment? Yes?
Yes.
The Dover Amendment is to allow the exemption from local zoning for educational, religious nonprofits. There's been, and that is what you'll have, Spectrum, Dismiss, and I hate to just name a few groups, that will come in and they'll open up a rehab center or something that's very needed. That's in today's situation we have with the opiate crisis and other issues. But the issue that surrounds it is a lot of communities dislike the fact that they're exempt from the local zoning. While there's language in this, which again will be one of the issues I think would be tough to keep in there, that would require a study of the Dover Amendment to see if it's actually being utilized with the original intent of that language. So, but again, so I can see a lot of resistance to that. And if you have any interest in supporting that, I would recommend that you, again, it would only establish a commission to look at to see if the law is being used with, the application of the law is being used with what it was intended for. So, other than that, thank you. And again, thank you for your communication. Well,
I
Dan?
think Mr. Carpenter has a question.
I have one, because we had a hearing on the plastic bag ban for us as a local municipality. There's something pending in the legislature. Have you any information for us on that?
Nope. If you get me the bill number, I can get you an update.
Okay.
Like it hasn't, as you know, there's Joint Rule 10, which every bill had to be released from a committee by February, I think it was February 7th, the second week of February. So unless they were granted, the committee was granted a vote of extension for those bills. So that bill should have been released from the committee with either a favorable, non-favorable, or a study.
It was released from the committee.
Well, yeah, it would have had to have been unless it was granted. But I would just need the bill number to track it.
I will
Okay.
send it along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Berthium, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just, first of all, I want to thank you for everything you do for the town of Auburn, advocating for the town of Auburn. And I know you're always around for our events, and when we're reaching out to you, you're definitely responding, and that's awesome, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to go back into the discussion of the bill for a minute. So are we looking at that the bill will pass as a whole or not as a, or?
The land zoning bill?
Yeah, it's all or nothing? Is that what I'm understanding? So they're
Yes,
not going to vote line items in?
No, you'll have an omnibus bill pass the House of Representatives and be sent over to the Senate. But during the debate process is when you'll have individual legislators, representatives, file amendments to either add language or remove language. So then after they vote on the amendments, then the entire bill is voted on, and then determined whether if it passes, it gets sent over to us.
Okay.
So you won't have one section of the, I don't say there's 20 sections of it. You won't have section 19 passed and the others not passed. You'll have one omnibus bill that will be sent over to us.
But there's time for us to try to get that through, to
Yes.
say, amend it to get this out of there and put
Well,
this.
not being in the House, I don't know what the timeline is for them doing it. I do know, dealing with the Senate President's office, they are waiting for this bill to come over.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can check with Representative Frost where the status of it in the House. Anything else? Anything else? Thanks so much for coming in and giving us your annual update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We have no communications. The next items are Board of Selectmen. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Board of Selectmen general items, and we have Sheldon Tully Davidson, 914 Southbridge Street in Auburn, for an outdoor entertainment license amendments. Is there someone here? If you want to join us, please. So enclosed is a revised calendar for 2018. Also, the emails from the fire chief and the building commissioner with their comments on the changes. So just to refresh members' memories, we did take a vote to support the outdoor entertainment license, but that license had just DJ requests, and we had some concerns, so asked for an updated calendar with live bands. So you have that before you. The diagram of where the proposed bands would be, as well as the comments from the building inspector and the fire chief. So, good evening. If you could just give your name to us for the record again, please?
Yeah, Chad Raymond, Sheldon's Harley-Davidson. I'm the general manager there.
Thank you, Chad. Do members have any questions for Chad? Mr. Holstrom?
Yep. Through the chair, I see here on the list, you're talking 150 to 200 attendees. Is that pretty accurate? Do you get more than that? Do you get less than that? I know it's early in the season where, your second one is going to be this week. However, how accurate is that number? Is that going to be, pretty much in line with what you're going to have all summer?
It will. I mean, I've been doing this 15 years or better, and that's about what we've seen, at most bike nights that I've attended, and it's about 150 to 200. Honestly, it'll probably be less. Like, for instance, this 13th one that we have coming up, it's going to be an indoor function with the DJ, and it'll be less than that. If we had the building to put 200 people in, I'd be a happy guy, so we can't do that.
And your parking has been sufficient for the number of people that you've had there? You haven't had any problems with parking?
No, we have 5 acres of paved lot, and from what I understand, it was an extremely large RV dealership in the past, and we haven't had any issues now.
Okay, thank you.
And we have that mapped out too. If you look at the map, it shows you, that we're set up for overflow parking, and we plan to have people on staff that night to be able to rifle through any issues. Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Holstrom. I have a couple questions for you, and if I'm looking at the diagram.
Yep.
Okay, so if you hold the diagram so that the band and the vendors are to the right of the calendar.
Yep.
I just want to confirm, I did take a ride down there. You weren't there, but I spoke with,
Tom.
my goodness, Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, who was very helpful, because we did have concerns about
Sure.
the music and the speakers, so I just want to confirm this for the record. So where the band is setting up, if you pull in, it will be to the right of the building.
Correct.
You have several bays, one of them numbered 10.
Yep.
So that is the location of the proposed band setup.
Correct.
And am I to believe that when they set up the band, the speakers will be pointed towards the direction of the car wash next to you?
Right.
They will not be directed towards the neighborhood across the street or to the rear of your building?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And one of the issues with, and I just want to make sure we talked about this last time you came in, there's plenty of parking, but one of the issues was people pulling in and just kind of stopping and no access to the rest of the parking. Are you going to ensure there's somebody there kind of directing the parking to make sure that you have access to all of that parking? Because people kind of come in and park and stop their bikes, and then somebody starts another row, and before you know it, there's no access to the
Sure.
rest of the 5 acres you have.
Yeah, so the plan is to be able to, we're going to have somebody there parking the bikes, you're not going to be able to just pull up and park wherever, because absolutely, somebody, you get 10 guys that'll pull in at once, they need to be parked appropriately, because if not, then they'll be scattered everywhere, and it'll be not even controlled chaos, so.
And, the chief and the building inspector didn't have any, additional concerns because they felt the DJ was similar to the band. But again, just for the purpose of tonight's meeting, we still want you to be aware of the concerns with the noise level, the fact that you have neighborhoods in front of you and behind you.
Sure.
And I think that where you've set up for the bands and the direction of the speakers certainly will help with those concerns.
Sure.
So, does anyone else? Mr. Holstrom?
Yes, through the chair, I wasn't here at the last meeting when this was discussed.
Yep.
And one of the items that came up was the DJ was going to be on the 13th of the one that you just had.
Yep.
Is the rest of the summer going to be all live bands, or are there going to be DJs? How's that going to work?
It probably won't. So, ultimately, we were trying to get the live band part passed, right, to be able to get an event list, see who's available as far as booking dates. I don't see it being live bands every time, no. I don't. It might be let's say every three, have, three bands and then a DJ. If it's and quite frankly, there'll be some dates where it may rain and we may have the band inside.
Okay.
To still be able to have the function, not that we would even have close to the attendees, but to not have a rain date, but still have people come to the store.
Great. Thank you.
When you get that updated calendar, I know that you did this for the purposes of getting this approved. When you get that updated calendar, if you could provide it to us as well, whether it's DJ band, just so that we're aware and
Yep.
that public safety can be aware.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to start booking folks until I,
And that's certainly reasonable.
knew what we had going.
And so I did, and I guess this is more a procedural question for the town manager. The original application just said DJ, so if the board were to approve this tonight, I think we should have either an amended application where you would come in and initial it, so that we have DJs and live bands,
Okay.
or a new application, whatever works for you, but we do need to have that amended application for DJs and live bands.
That's an easy process, right? It's just coming
Absolutely,
in
just,
and-
Yeah, just come on
just-
in, we can help you out with that.
just fill it in and initial it. I think you could probably use the same application. So, do members have any questions? So I just, again, I did take a ride down there and saw where it is on the side of the building. It seems certainly a reasonable location compared to the issues we have. We have a new manager who seems committed to working with the board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the amendments as shown, to include live band as well as DJ for the dates that were already approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye. Have a good night.
The next item we have on the agenda is a drain layers license for Raymond Bonneville, doing business as Fantastic Builders. Attached are the drain layer license application and a revised notice of recommendation from the Sewer Commission. This had come before us in the past, but the Sewer Commission had asked us to hold it because they were having an additional hearing to review some additional recommendations. So, do any members have any questions on this?
I make a motion, we approve the license, provided all the applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Second.
Is there any discussion under this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The next item is gift acceptance in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A. And we have a donation to the Fire Rescue Department from Michelle Palmer in memory of Walter Lemieux for $50. Is there a motion?
Accept with gratitude?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Moving on the agenda, we have no proclamations. Before you, you have the May 1st, 2018 annual town meeting warrant. This will come back before the board at our next meeting for recommendations. Tonight, we would be voting to approve this warrant, subject to final review by town council. Are there any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
Make a motion to move this to final review by town council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. So the board, again, like I said, will have this back before us, I believe, on the 9th to take positions on the warrant, which will still leave time for the positions to be printed in the town meeting warrant. Next, we have town manager items. We have Ms. Jacobson, Alice training.
Through the chair, as you may recall, we conducted ALICE training, which is an active shooter training for all of our town employees in Town Hall and some of our other offices as well, about 3 years ago. Since that time, we have had some new employees, and it's always good to update training, and there have been some adjustments to the ALICE training that was done by the police and fire from a couple of years ago that we want to implement here. So we did have an ALICE training at the library this past Friday, and the training went very well. We got great positive feedback from the employees and from the police and fire department that ran that training. We plan on running the ALICE training here on Friday, May 4th, and we would be opening our offices as normal at 8 a.m. and closing at 10 a.m. We'll make sure we provide the public with notice. We have to give the training in the building. It's site-specific, so it's training as to how to prepare and defend and take appropriate measures in your workplace. So it's important. A couple of years ago, after we did that training, we really found some really great ideas came out of it that we have since implemented, including glass windows on some of the doors where there was a potential concern, realignment, as you can see in our office, to make sure that the employees have a secondary access as opposed to being over in a corner with no access. So it's been a great training for us to see facility-wise what we need to do the best we can to prevent a tragedy from happening here with our employees. We also ran a training a couple of years ago with the board and commission members. So that one was a little bit different just because we hold it at night and they don't have office space, but we were looking into doing that again as well. But I just wanted to let the public know that we will close at 10 a.m. on Friday, May 4th to conduct this training. It's at least 3 hours to do this.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. We have some tabled items. I'll just go through them quickly. We have the first three that I think are all going back to the subcommittee, the draft code of conduct, the revision of the recognition policy, and the proclamation policy, and new recommendation for the subcommittee's consideration. And these are all going back to the subcommittee. I believe you have not met yet.
No, we have passed some information, but we haven't met. So
Okay.
we will be meeting in the very near future, and hopefully by the next meeting or so that we should be able to bring that back for discussion.
Okay. Did members have anything on any of those? Okay. The next item is a proposed plastic bag ban, and, for the public, we are still accepting comment. The hearing is still open. You can contact us via email, come into the office, write to us, but we are still accepting public comment on this, and we'll be holding a hearing at a future date. Are there any Board of Selectmen member items? Is there any additional public comment? We have no minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you so
and
much.
good night.